What is going on, guys, and welcome back to Touchdowns to Home Runs. My name is Bernie. Thank you for joining us today on the Touchdowns to Home Runs show. Hope that your day is going absolutely fantastic. Today we're going to be doing a preview and prediction for the Week 2 matchup between the Michigan Wolverines and the Washington Huskies. This matchup should be a really good one, even with the Huskies' loss last week, as we'll get into in just a second. But yeah, this is one game that from a Michigan Wolverines fan perspective in terms of the out-of-conference schedule that I've had circled for quite some time now. So again, even with the loss for the Huskies, it should be an exciting one come Saturday night. Just before we do get into previewing each one of these two teams though, as always guys, if you do enjoy what you see today, please make sure to do me a huge favor, smash that thumbs up button, subscribe to Touchdowns to Home Runs for more content just like this. Before we get into the actual preview, let's take a look at the changes in the AP polls for Washington. They started the year ranked number 20, but of course with their loss last week to Montana, it's really no surprise that they are no longer ranked and fell out of the top 25. For the Michigan Wolverines, I was a little bit surprised that they didn't end up being ranked when the rankings came out earlier. I know it was only a win against Western Michigan, but it was a good one, and a lot of people did predict that they would be right around the 24 range, but they did have the second most votes to be ranked out of unranked teams. In terms of the history of this matchup, Michigan does lead the all-time series by a score of 7-5, but it's definitely worth noting that these two teams haven't played since Michigan took their last meeting all the way back in 2002. I want to kick it off with the Michigan Wolverines, who, as I mentioned before, come into this matchup with a record of 1-0 on the season off the back of a really nice 47-14 win against Western Michigan. Let's take a look at some of the important takeaways from this past week. Of course, the number one takeaway being Ronnie Bell. Obviously, it was the talking point after week 1, and it's never a good sign when your captain and best offensive player leave the game with an injury, and unfortunately, this is a huge hit to Michigan's offense. For those who are wondering, it did officially get confirmed by Jim Harbaugh that the injury was a torn ACL and that Ronnie Bell will unfortunately miss the entirety and the remainder of the season. When Bell got hurt, he was in the midst of a game where he already had an outstanding one-handed grab, which got called back on a very bad call in my opinion, had a 76-yard touchdown reception and a 31-yard punt return. It's really no surprise to anybody how big of a difference maker that Ronnie Bell is. So again, as I was saying before, a huge hit. And now that makes it for the Michigan Wolverines that you really got to have a next man up sort of scenario. Guys like Cornelius Johnson are definitely going to need to take big steps, and really take hold of this Wolverines offense. Number 2 is Kade McNamara in the quarterback situation. A little bit of a more positive note here. The Michigan quarterback room was obviously very talented. Michigan decided that Cade McNamara was going to be their quarterback 1 going into this season, just given his experience, solid accuracy. Seemed like he was sort of the glue guy holding this offense together at the later part of the season last year. But he looked really good in week 1. Passed 9 for 11, 136 yards with 2 passing touchdowns. Looked very patient in the pocket thanks to actually some really dominant play from the offensive line. He had some good deep balls, looked pretty good on the deep ball accuracy, including that long touchdown to Ronnie Bell. And Michigan overall, I thought, looked really comfortable offensively in the more up-tempo offense, and I think that's something that we'll continue to see moving forward, especially into this week against the Huskies. We also did get to see some play from Mccarthy. I'm not going to hold up on this too much, though, because he's most likely not going to play too much this season, but he did look good as well. Passed 4 for 6, 80 yards and a touchdown. Looked very comfortable running the offense, and I think we'll be in good hands when he is our QB1 at some point in the future. Number 3, the other offense, our ground game looked very solid. Blake Corum led the way, 111 yards on 14 carries. As a team, we ran for 335 and an average of 7.8 yards per carry. We also saw AJ Henning with a long 74-yard rush. And if you've watched this channel before, you'll know that I covered AJ Henning as a recruit, and I also love the speed that he brings to the Michigan Wolverines. I really do hope that he gets utilized more this season, and who knows, maybe he will now with the injury of Ronnie Bell. Number 4 is that defense. A lot of Michigan's bigger changes came on the defensive side of the ball, and one of the bigger moves of the offseason, of course, was the firing of Don Brown, and now bringing in a new defensive coordinator. In week 1, Michigan had no interceptions and only 1 sack, but they did a great job on 3rd down, and Josh Ross, Smith, and Hutchison all look like they'll be causing opposition offenses a lot of trouble all year long. Let's flip over to the Washington Huskies. As I mentioned before, the Huskies come into this matchup with a pretty disappointing 0-1 record after a not-so-good 13-7 loss against Montana in Week 1. Some of the takeaways for the Huskies, well, the first one has to be the quarterback play. The big story of the week for the Huskies was really poor play from Dylan Morris, passed 27 of 46 with 3 interceptions. They were only 4 of 14 on third down and 1 of 3 on fourth down. Dylan Morris last year did show some signs of moving in a good direction as the Huskies' future QB1 led them to a 3-1 record last year with only 3 total interceptions in all those 4 games. So the Huskies will be hoping that this was sort of a one-and-done game and that the quarterback play is improved for the rest of the season, but especially come Saturday. Number 2 is the defense, and I think the big question around the Huskies this year was their defense. All 4 Huskies to get drafted in 2021 were defensive players, including names like Joe Tyron, Levi Onwuzurike, hopefully I pronounced that right, Elijah Molden, and Keith Taylor. The Huskies also promoted Bob Gregory to their new defensive coordinator after their former defensive coordinator took a job at Texas. This is, of course, also coming off a bit of a down year defensively in the 2020 season. Now, I know there was really a lack of games. They only played 4 games, but they did rank 15th defensively in 2019, so I think a lot of questions that need to be continued to answer here be answered here, but I think it was a very good sign and a pretty solid defensive performance from the Huskies in Week 1. Number 3, in terms of their other offense, in terms of the rushing game, Richard Newton led the way, running 62 yards with 17 carries, but the Huskies only averaged 2.4 yards per rush and really struggled overall getting the run game going. Cade Oten led the way with 8 receptions, 82 yards. Taj Davis, Cameron Davis, Richard Newton, Giles Jackson, the former Michigan man, all had 3 or more receptions as well. Quickly, before we end the video, I want to take a look at the betting lines and give my predictions on those betting lines. At the time of me filming this video, the Michigan Wolverines are currently sitting as 6-point favorites with the over-under set at 49.5. Here's where I stand on this. I think Washington is a good team, but it's hard to see Washington being within a score based on their last game in Week 1. I'm not saying this isn't necessarily a game that the Huskies can't win, but given that game, I see a real lack of value here in terms of the spread, and I think if you're going to side with Washington, you might as well take them on the money line here and get the value that way. As for the over-under, I'm taking the under. I think Michigan's offense looked good last game, but no Ronnie Bell definitely hurts them offensively, and I think both the Michigan and Washington defenses are underrated, so with only 7 points being scored by the Huskies last week, I think everything definitely points to the under, so give me Michigan -6, give me that under 49.5 total points. But as always, guys, if you did enjoy today's video, thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to let me know by leaving a thumbs up, subscribe to Touchdowns to Home Runs. Also, make sure to put your comments and game predictions on this matchup between the Michigan Wolverines and Washington Huskies down in the comment section below. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I do hope to see you guys again next time.